Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners work session, second one for Thursday, June 24th, 2021. It is 2:02 p.m. My name is Ty Minster, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair of the Board, Commissioner Gary Edwards to my left. To my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia. Our acting county manager today is Joshua Cummings from our Community Planning and Economic Development Department, and Megan Porter is with us as well. Today's topic is Financial Services Cost Plan. We have 1 hour allotted. We are live streamed on our Thurston County YouTube channel. We have folks from our auditor's office and budget team who will help us get through the slides, which the commissioners, I think, have all been provided in advance. Acting County Manager, who's taking the lead? Is it you, Darren?
Yeah, I can take the lead. From the auditor's office, I'd like to introduce Ron Haney. It's not Jessica Haney like it shows on there, but Ron Haney. Ron is a senior financial analyst, has been with the county, been with financial services for a very long time. He puts together, he, in conjunction with Maggie Baker, who also is on the call here, put together our cost plan every year. They do an amazing job. And Ron is, and also Maggie are the detail folks, and they're gonna walk you through the presentation today, let you know how the cost plan is designed and put together, let you know the final results of the cost plan. And this will be a good refresher because I know most people only look at this once a year, and Ron will let you know just what the cost plan really is. We also have Olivia Odman here from Financial Services as well. And Olivia, you all know Olivia, she does a great job on the budget team. So why don't we, who's doing the slides and how is that being projected?
So Ron, can you pull up the PowerPoint or do you need me to?
I can. Okay. It should be just like this, and I click on here.
Yeah, perfect.
There you go.
Great.
How does that look?
So take it away, Ron.
All right. Okay, this is the, as the first slide says, this is the cost plan, Thurston County's cost plan. And this is what we're going to bill. The general fund's going to bill in 2022. So how do I get to the next slide?
Can we do a full screen as well, please?
What's
so
that?
Ron, if you go up to slideshow, Ron, we can go up to present and then it'll full screen it. So go up to slideshow, I think is where it is, up in the left hand over there somewhere.
I see home, insert.
Yep, I think it's slideshow to the left.
Slideshow. Oh, slideshow, very top.
Oh yeah, that works too, I'm pretty sure. There you go. Give that a whirl.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect. Then you can just press the space bar.
Oh, there, that'll work. Okay, yeah. Okay. So in 2022, the general fund will collect $6.6 million from other funds. This is a
why? Can you say why, Ron?
Yes, we'll get to that in the next slide. Yeah. So there's a few reasons why. We'll go over this.
Okay.
This is a decrease of $337,000 from what we're billing this year in 2021. That's pretty unusual. So we'll discuss that. I have the same two slides at the very end. One that shows what we're billing out by service and who we're billing it to. And I think that will go a long ways to explain what is going on with the cost reimbursement reduction. Now, the thing is, it's always kind of difficult to wrap our minds around this. So that's kind of the first step here. The cost allocation plan is a rate plan for billing the cost of internal services provided by the general fund to other funds. It's actually kind of a cost reimbursement plan. We don't charge rates. It's similar to an internal service fund, but it's different because it's all the costs stay in the general fund. And we simply identify services in the general fund that is benefiting other funds. The general fund can spend money on anything. So that is why the services are usually in the general fund. And then it's up to the Board of County Commissioners to what extent they want to bill the cost of these services out. There's kind of standard services, HR, accounting, some non-standard. That includes your office, Board of County Commissioners, assessor, and some others that are kind of unique to our plan. It's planning and emergency services. They're all funded out of the general fund. So we bill all this out, at least what we can bill out, which I'll explain further on here too. As noted, service costs billed to service users, at least I think I know this, is at the discretion and the direction of the Board of County Commissioners. What the services we bill out and who we bill them to is all at your discretion. And I guess I could point out right away, right now, this, like look at it, I used last year like a dial where it's turned all the way to the right on full cost. We're currently, as far as we know, capturing all the internal service costs and billing them out to all the funds that are benefiting from those services. So it's kind of cranked up to a full service cost reimbursement to the general fund. And it's been that way for a while, been that way several years. Yeah, all costs are billed to all funds. It includes external service, excludes external service. You know, we don't bill out the sheriff. We don't bill out the prosecuting attorney. It also excludes reimbursed costs. It's the net cost. So we can't, you know, collect on a cost twice. It's just the net unreimbursed cost. General funds are not billed because the money, we already spent money on, it's funded out of the general fund. So it really wouldn't make any difference if we build the general fund. We just have to run some transfers through our financial system that would have no effect on fund balance. So general funds not billed. Agencies are not outside agencies unless we have a separate authorized agreements. The county auditor has a couple small agreements with 3 outside agencies that we collect a little bit of money on, but not a whole lot. And how is this done? Okay, service costs are assigned to users by activity drivers. For example, vouchers. Our voucher section in financial services, we use accounts payable invoices. So when somebody processes, when we process an accounts payable voucher for another fund, there is a cost associated with that. That's how it's billed out through these kinds of activity drivers. They must be billed equitably. So even if you decide to cut back or you know, make some changes, whatever the board does has to be done in a equitable fashion, equitable manner, fair manner. Actual costs are billed on a 2-year lag because it's actual, that what we bill out is actual. And we don't know that until the next year, which is 2000. We don't know 2020 until 2021, and we're already into 2021. So that's why this will be billed in 2022. The actual cost that was incurred for these services provided by the general fund to other funds, why that will actually be reimbursed back to the general fund next year. Users have option of requesting a general fund subsidy from the BOCC. This is kind of key here. Don't know if it's been used a lot, but so we bill all funds the full cost, okay? So the escape valve is that a fund that's billed the full cost, they think it's unfair, they can't pay it, they have no money, they can present, they can go to the Board of County Commissioners and request a reduction. They can request a subsidy from the general fund for whatever reason. So whatever, all funds have that option of going to the board, and if they can present a good case to the board, and the board agrees with them, then they can reimburse all or a portion of whatever is being billed to their fund for these services from the cost plan.
Ron, could you give a real life example of that?
We just did it with LMDs.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
That's good.
On that, okay.
Okay.
On that last real life option of what?
Of a general fund subsidy from the board. The board just did that for the Lake Lawrence and Long Lake management districts. We billed the full amount. They made a claim, a request, and the board basically refunded a portion, a big chunk of those costs back for 2021 out of general fund.
Yes, and it's usually done in non-departmental. I mean, I think you have some subsidies going to land use or land use or building services. You have, you have transfers going to public health. Now, the question is whether it involves the cost plan. So I'm not informed of when there is a request by a fund to or a department from the board on a subsidy or a reduction on what is being billed. So I'm unaware of what takes place there. But the key thing from my standpoint, it is that option that's available. So if there are complaints or whatever, and you think they have a good case for it, then you can grant a subsidy. You can reduce what is being billed out, in addition to what you normally fund through subsidies and transfers out of non-departmental on an annual basis.
That's great, Ron. Thank you. We got that question and ready to move on.
Okay. This shouldn't take a full hour, by the way, but if it does, it's fine. We'll have lots of time for questions. The billing process, user funds are sent detailed statements. So, get in front of, presenting this to the board is kind of fun, kind of high pressure tension, but where the rubber really meets the road is with who you bill, because they're the ones that usually have questions. So we send billing statements out every year, and they're fairly detailed. We note in those statements, in those spreadsheets, we explain any significant change in what they're being billed. We don't usually get a lot of responses back, which is great. And sometimes we get general questions. Sometimes there are complaints. Public health has kind of complained a little bit in the past, and they're kind of up there a little bit. So, but we like to get through the billing process with as few complaints and questions as possible. Hopefully that'll happen again this year. User has a right to question and request explanations. No current disputable issues at this point in time, but that's not really fair because we really haven't sent any bills out yet. So we'll see. I don't expect, I expect maybe one or two, but we'll see what happens. Okay, the following summarized draft 2022 full cost plan is identical to all prior cost plans since 2011. Okay, in 2011, that's where we went to the full cost, allocating all services out and billing all the funds we could bill. We are asking for tentative BOCC approval, or alternately any directives on desired changes by the BOCC. So here's the first table. These are services that are allocated out. So the first thing, if I was trying to understand this, go to the bottom line. So what we allocate out is 20.7 million. Okay, we only bill 6.6 million. Okay, that will be explained in the next slide because we don't bill the general fund and outside agency funds. Outside agency funds because we legally can't bill them. The general fund because it wouldn't make any difference. So you can see what we billed last year, 6,983,000. So there's the difference. There's that $337,486. Okay, out of that, so it went from 6.9 million to 6.6 million. That's what we're scheduled to collect in 2022. So you go in that far right column, and it will show you what's changed. So the big one is emergency management, $106,000 down from last year. And so this is a cost reimbursement plan. So the 106,000 down for emergency management and the $61,803 down for planning, it's just the net cost. Their allocable net cost was simply less than it was in the prior cost plan, and that really hit what we bill out hard, because we bill most of what those costs are. Most of it's billed to other than the general fund and outside agency funds. So that's kind of a big hit. Commissioners went down. Okay, you have some staffing changes. You have some COVID reimbursements. You went down 98,000. The strange one is assessor. And the assessor shouldn't change. And this is kind of a nice one to kind of explain how this works. So the assessor's office, it cost $4.8 million in 2020. Okay, that's what it cost. Okay, we, in the cost plan, we allocate out the assessor services to whoever benefits from it. Well, that's roads. They get a property tax levy. Medic One does. Conservation Futures does too. So that's usually pretty stable. We do it based on levy. So whatever levy you get, that's a percentage of the total levies that the assessor's office processes annually, and then you get a certain percent of the cost. Well, that went down. And the reason why it went down is the levies for school districts and fire districts just went way up, decreasing everyone else's allocated share. It appears that that school refunding process that they've been working on through the legislature for years, it looks like that really kicked in 2020, because the tax levy, even for the state portion of the property tax levy for schools, that went way up. So that's the reason why it's down for Medic One, why it's down for the roads. $43,000 reduction there. So that's the services, okay? This is all, so in the cost plan, I mean, in the general fund, we spent $20.7 million, okay, on these services. And we're billing out, we will bill out $6.6 million of that cost in 2022. Now, who we're billing that to is in the next slide. That's this one here. So the bottom line are the same numbers. 20.7 million, 6.6 million, 6.9 million, 337,000. So the key one here is right above that 20.7 million is that $674,091. That is the cost of,
Right?
what's that?
It's million, right? 13 million?
Yeah, 13 million. What did I say?
I thought you said
Okay.
thousand.
Yeah, 13 million, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the cost of services from the general fund that's not reimbursed. That's provided back to the general fund, and outside agency funds. That's outside agency are primarily assessor. There's some, of course, in the treasurer that's allocated to outside agencies. And of course, financial services through the fire districts, the payment voucher process, that kind of thing. So, okay, same number. So you look on the right-hand side, that 337,486, and they're all down, except for two. One is public health, and one is the CPE department. So for public health, okay, we allocate this stuff out with activity drivers, okay? So the ones we use for public health, like expenditures and budget and other activities, they're just way up for public health. And, which stands to reason, because there's a lot of activity going on in the public health department now, right now, where back in 2020, and of course right now, that increases the allocated share of our costs to public health. For the CPE department, that is, there was some primarily legal tracks their time by hour, and they simply charged primarily a lot more legal service costs to stormwater. their legal costs went up. That's the primary cause for that. So that's it. I mean, I would have liked to charge Public Works more because they have lots of money, or they have more money than other departments do. I shouldn't say that. And but we have to do it equitably. We have to do it fairly, and it's just based on the policies that have been adopted by the board and that we use for this process. It simply is less for the funds for the Public Works Department, $174,000 less than in 2020 than it was in 2019. So that's, and one other note, these numbers are going to change slightly. We just discovered that there are some COVID reimbursements that we need to add to the plan. It's not going to change it much. It's real minor, but it's going to change some. And we want to make sure that all the reimbursements for these services that we allocate out, we want to make sure that these services are credited for those reimbursements, because that's kind of a real kind of bottom line for a cost reimbursement plan. And I can go back to these slides if you need to, but at this point, it's only been, we're about 20 minutes into the presentation, but we're at the questions, comments, anyone, considerations, policy issues, anything like that?
I have a foundational question, maybe, if I could.
You go ahead, and I'll.
So, can we just go back to the very beginning? And I remember this being addressed last year or the year before when I was pretty new, but Commissioner Mejia might want to hear it, and I want to hear it again.
And I might want to hear it again too.
This way of, when you said, like, we've got the dial cranked to 10 in terms of how we allocate this. And I think that everyone could acknowledge that to a layperson, or even, it's pretty confusing. So I guess I'm wondering, one is, does every county have the dial cranked to 10? Are there any counties that just don't do this at all? I mean, just reduce the budgets corresponding. Like, what's the philosophy behind this? Like, is it make it cleaner for an audit? Does it create incentives for the departments to be more efficient, use less services? I mean, because I can imagine you just don't do this, and you don't do any of this. You just, the county just picks up the tab and you pay for, and people, you allocate less to people's budget because they're not responsible for paying that bill back. I mean, what's the philosophical underpinning behind why this is the right way to do things?
Well, I have my own take on that.
Yeah, please.
And also the history here with the county. And, that was the argument for, so this plan, the county's plan, has been around for about 25, 30 years, okay? And initially this plan, it didn't allocate out the Board of County Commissioners. It didn't bill out. It didn't bill out the assessor's office. It billed out financial services. It billed out HR, okay? And what really changed that is, I believe, Initiative 747, because, back then in the 80s, you could increase property taxes by, I think, 6% a year. So there was sufficient funding for the general fund. So there was a good argument the commissioners felt back then that, we have some services we need to charge out, but, these others, we can pay for it. Okay, well, Initiative 747 hit the 1% initiative, and then 2000, and that it took a little while for that to really impact. And then the general fund ran out of money, I think, around 2008, 9, 10. And that's where the full cost plan was implemented, because the board concluded that, look at, with the current funding framework for the general fund, we can't even pay for what we need. Okay, I mean, we can't even pay for law and justice. So, which is primarily what the general fund funds, besides some administrative services. So if we can't even pay for or fund what we need, I mean, why are we paying for these other service costs that we could be billing out and that other funds are benefiting from? from the use of these services. Again, the reason why they're all in the general fund is because the general fund can pay for anything.
Okay, so.
There's no limitations.
So it's really about protecting the general fund from the chipping away from the other funds who would be benefiting from general fund funded services. And so it's really, I mean, in the aggregate, it's shifting money around, but it's a protection of the general fund, which has been limited, as you say, by law, in the property tax cap. Is that right?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
That's you said right there, you just got it summarized up what I said real nicely. So yeah, I mean, and what I like to use the example of solid waste. I mean, solid waste, they're not looking for money. Okay. And the thing is, I mean, that's a well-funded program, great program, by the way, in my opinion. But I mean, they're not looking for money. So they have no problem funding their disposal services and what they do with waste and all their recycling programs. They don't have the problems the general fund has. So one thing we want to do for sure is, to the extent you provide services to a fund like solid waste, especially if they're being paid out of the general fund, we want to make sure those service that the solid waste is billed for those services.
I got it. So then that helps us meet the needs of sheriff's department and the court system and all the departments that were just struggling to meet their needs because of the general fund limitations. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner. Who's got a question? Go ahead.
Ron, you said in there somewhere along the line that we have to be equitable in our treatment.
Yeah.
And who says? Is that a county commission thing? Is that a state law? Is it RCW, a WAC, or what?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. Yes, but I have to kind of throw in a caveat because you have to be equitable. Okay, there's no question about that.
But why?
But again, the general fund can fund anything. So it's what you can do is you can go into you can pick any fund or program, and you can say, you know, public health.
Denise has got her hand up, Ron. You're going to get in trouble. Denise
What's
has got
that?
her hand up.
Go ahead, Denise.
Could I just add, I'd be happy to get the exact statutory reference for you, but there is a statutory reference that talks about one fund not benefiting another, and essentially for it to be fair, if you will, it needs to be done equitably. And so I'd be happy to get that for you. I just can't do it on the fly right now.
Well, okay, I think that answers what I was wondering about. Is there a statute that directs that?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Darren.
I can also add that
Some interest here.
this is one of the first things that the state auditors would look at when they look at a county or city's internal cost allocation plan, is making sure that it is equitable and that not one fund benefiting from the other. I think it's that the state constitution that it talks about one fund not benefiting another one. But Denise we could look that up for
If
you.
you had an inequitable allocation, you could characterize that as one fund benefiting
Sure,
in
yeah,
that.
I can see it. I just wondered the terminology, where the authority actually came from, and that's all I need.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. Here's the catch,
Another
though.
one.
Here's the catch here for the cost plan. So when it comes to, okay, for example, where you really have to make sure that you don't benefit one fund at the expense of another fund, for solid waste, for example, you can't say we're charging the entire cost of the Board of County Commissioners of solid waste. Why? Because we can do it. Can't do that. That's what that law says you can't do. But what you can do is you could look at solid waste, and you can look at their bill here, solid waste program. We're going to charge them $620,180. You could say, since the general fund can pay for anything, okay, you can say, we're going to pay that. We're going to pay that for the solid waste program. So where you can really do anything is where you decide to pay for something. But you can't do anything when you're trying to generate revenues back to the general fund using the cost plan, because that's where you get into the equitable and fair statute.
And
You know, you just can't.
You're probably violating the rules regarding that restricted fund too. I mean,
Yeah.
Turning it on the other side.
Olivia, did you have something to add? Okay.
Okay, that's good. Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No, this is,
Interesting stuff.
it's interesting stuff and I'm
If
soaking
you've
it
got
in.
good understanding of this, you're way above, way ahead of me when I was doing it, and which I still don't have full understanding of.
Okay.
Every year.
Well,
I
I've
get
did
a
it for a
little
number of
bit.
years. I should understand it.
All right, team, anything else to share with the commissioners on this item? Go for it, Darren. You're on mute.
I mean, okay, one place that Commissioner Edwards can look is RCW 43.09.210. Says it indicates when one fund is charging another, the fund being charged may only pay for the actual cost of the services it renders or it receives. So that's a good starting point.
Board, any other
And
questions? Sir? Go ahead, Olivia.
I just want to add in there, I know we keep talking about it in a sense of trying to protect the general fund, but on the flip side, some of these smaller funds can't afford to have a full-time accountant or to have a full-time HR person. So by having a cost plan, they're now able to utilize, the general fund services while paying for their use of it. I mean, it's not always that we are trying to protect the general fund. I guess that is one way to phrase it, but it does benefit them. They don't have to have as large of a staff is my only point.
Got it. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? So is it a thumbs up on this one as well?
Well,
How does
what's
this
the
work?
effect that, if we give a thumbs up on this, tell us what we just did.
Keep doing it this way.
At the very beginning.
Well, see,
Just kidding.
yeah, from my standpoint, okay, so if you give the thumbs up, what you're doing, except for these minor adjustments, like I said, we have to add some additional COVID reimbursements. It's going to increase, it might have about a $20,000 impact on the cost plan, maybe less, I'm not sure, but we want to make sure that's in there correctly. But the bottom line is, if you approve it, you're approving the county to bill the full cost of services based on the policies you've established to every fund within the county. That's what you're approving at this point.
And are we saving 337,000, or are we costing 337,000 more?
You're going to bring in okay, let's say if you don't approve the plan, okay, you would lose $6.6 million in reimbursements in 2022. Okay, you can't do anything about that 337 with some minor changes because it's simply going to go down based on what is available to charge out based on the costs that occurred in 2020. So, but I mean, you kind of, your options are to either bill the 6.6 million to other funds in 2022 or decide to do something less. You could you could decide not to bill the full cost of the board. You could, or the assessor, or
So
there's
Okay.
Ron, let me jump in real quick. I think it's on your BOCC policy issue where it says we are asking for tentative BOCC approval to essentially do the cost plan that you've been doing since 2011 that's been working. Is that correct?
that is correct.
We're not changing midstream. Sounds good.
And that money, and just to close the loop, that money, that additional money that we're not billing, it still exists in the other funds. We're just talking about the general fund.
Yes.
So it's not like the money is not coming in, or it's not out there, or it doesn't exist. It's just, it's gonna continue to serve the citizens of Thurston County and its funds that it's sitting in.
I was gonna give it to the lakes, but.
Denise,
I would just ask if the board is providing direction that Ron go ahead and make the final adjustment of about $20,000 or whatever it is for those COVID. I just need to make sure that we know which set of rates are being approved.
So the question is, what we've been presented plus there's gonna be a small tweak with the COVID at 20,000, and that's the request for the thumbs up. And then Denise left.
3 thumbs for that.
3 thumbs.
Good to go.
You got 3 thumbs, everybody.
All right, that means that I can now do the billing statements since it's been approved by the board. So that's the next step. I got to get that done in the next day or two, where we will prepare all those billing statements and send them out to the departments to let them know what they will be paying from the cost allocation plan in 2022.
So hold please a second, Ron. So we've got thumbs up for the tentative approval. Do we want to have this conversation again for a formal recommendation Tuesday
I
morning?
don't myself, but
Okay, the board says proceed.
Unless Ramiro thinks it's needed, then we don't.
Yeah.
It's not our request for that.
Proceed. Thank you, Ron.
Bill it out and we'll see it back in the county, in the offices and departments budget requests.
Okay. Thank you, team. Good work.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
okay.